Hi, everyone. My name is John Gold, and I have a few things to say about what's going on with Representative Ilhan Omar. I wrote a script, and I'm just going to read from that. According to some, Representative Ilhan Omar said something controversial and insulting about 9/11. Here are a short list of things I find to be controversial and insulting about 9/11. I think it's controversial and insulting that George Bush and Dick Cheney asked Tom Daschle not to investigate the attacks at all. I think it's controversial and insulting that the 9/11 families had to fight for an investigation. I think it's controversial and insulting that 9/11 first responders and New Yorkers were told the air was safe to breathe and the water was safe to drink because opening Wall Street was more important than human beings. I think it's controversial and insulting that the 9/11 first responders are still fighting to make sure they are taken care of. I think it's controversial and insulting that the Joint Congressional Inquiry into 9/11 was limited to intelligence. I think it's controversial and insulting that the Bush administration did not fully cooperate with the different investigations into 9/11. I think it's controversial and insulting that Beltway insiders with conflicts of interest were made the commissioners for the 9/11 Commission. I think it's controversial and insulting that Philip Zelikow, someone with obvious conflicts of interests and a past history of getting history wrong, was made the executive director of the 9/11 Commission. I think it's controversial and insulting that the 9/11 Commission was underfunded and not given enough time. I think it's controversial and insulting that the 9/11 Commission didn't hold people under oath until they were shamed into doing so. I think it's controversial and insulting that the 9/11 Commission failed in their mandate, which was partly to give a full and complete accounting of 9/11. I think it's controversial and insulting that 70% of the 9/11 family's well-researched questions were not addressed by the 9/11 Commission. I think it's controversial and insulting that George Bush and Dick Cheney refused to testify publicly, not without each other, not under oath, and with no recordings or transcripts. I think it's controversial and insulting every time 9/11 is used for permanent war, the national security state, and hatred and bigotry. I think it's controversial and insulting that thousands of pages concerning 9/11 are still classified or redacted. I think it's controversial and insulting that people who should have been held accountable in government for 9/11 were instead rewarded and promoted. I think it's controversial and insulting that we still don't know the truth about 9/11. I think it's controversial and insulting that the establishment news has done everything within its power to slander, misrepresent, and attack those doing their best to support the 9/11 family seeking truth, accountability, and justice for what happened to their loved ones, and those trying to support the 9/11 first responders and New Yorkers seeking permanent help because of the environmental impact of 9/11 without having to beg anymore. People should stop attacking Ilhan Omar and start focusing on real controversial and insulting issues concerning 9/11. Thank you very much for your time.